Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's episode, we're going to start with our continued coverage of the war between the Russian Federation, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and its Ukrainian proxy forces. Now, over the last 24 hours, we have seen continued Russian airstrikes, ballistic missile and cruise missile strikes, and drone strikes against a wide array of Ukrainian targets, including striking multiple aim points in the capital, Kiev. Now, over the past week, it has been reported that just under 2,000 aim points have been struck by Russian missiles and guided bombs against Ukrainian targets. That is coming from Ukrainian sources. Again, we are continuing to see the use of air power in this war of attrition to continue to wear down the Ukrainian military. And this is going to continue day in and day out as the Russians continue to wear down Ukrainian forces. Now, we also want to look at headlines that are taking place around the world as well. Tensions are increasing between the United States and Iran. It is now reported that Iranian forces have been placed on their highest alert. We also know that over the past a number of weeks, the United States has been repositioning forces for a possible strike against Iran, including moving B-2 Spirit stealth bombers to Diego Garcia, this locale here. We know now that there are at least 6 B-2 bombers located at this facility with the capability of striking targets inside of Iran. And then we're also seeing the deployment of U.S. Patriots and THAADs that are designed to shoot down and have proven to have the capability of shooting down ballistic and semi-ballistic missiles that have been used in various conflicts, including many of the ballistic missiles that have been shot down that were targeting Israel. What else is going on? The Iranians are also utilizing more advanced electronic warfare mechanisms against U.S. drones and the possibility of a direct series of airstrikes against targets inside of Iran. The Iranians right now are very much fixated on being able to locate inbound U.S. stealth aircraft that would be F-35s and or B-2s that could strike targets inside of Iran. Now, the problem for the Iranians is that in most cases, these strikes are going to be initiated well outside of Iranian airspace. Most of the missiles that the U.S. will use, including some non-open source systems, will be used well outside of Iranian airspace, with the exception of a possible deployment of the B-2 Spirit dropping a very large ordnance penetrator against Iranian mountain supply depots, Iranian hardened infrastructure where the Iranians keep many of these ballistic missiles and store these ballistic missiles. You can go online and you can see the footage of the facilities that the Revolutionary Guards have created to store many of these missiles. Now, can the U.S. Penetrate those sites and destroy those areas? Possibly. Some they can, some they may not. They may be buried deep enough where it would be difficult to strike, and with the exception of going after the actual tunnel openings and burying those sites for a significant period of time where they can't be used, and then possibly attacking the tunnel boring infrastructure that could be used by the Iranians to evacuate those personnel. That would be another option. But again, if the United States uses the full weight of its military capacity against Iran, Iran is simply not going to be a happy camper. They are going to be very much unhappy with the level of pain that comes their way. If in fact this occurs. Now, obviously, the Iranians will launch missiles towards U.S. Interests in Qatar and other areas as well, possibly. And we know that prior to recent events that took place in which the Iranians had launched ballistic missiles towards Israel. Prior to that, in terms of some of the early launches of Iranian ballistic missiles against U.S. interests during the first Trump administration, against targets in Iraq, those were relatively successful, but the capability of U.S. forces to intercept those ballistic missiles have come a long way since the first Trump administration. And that was proven in the interception of many of these missile systems that were being used against the Israelis with the help of the United States. So we'll continue to watch this. And, the U.S. doesn't move these B-2 bombers lightly. They just don't mass them in a certain area. But at the same time, they are telegraphing this. So on one hand, you have to ask yourself, is this bluster designed to get the Iranians to come to the negotiating table and have a discussion about its nuclear weapon advances and what have you? Difficult to say at this point. But at some point, we could see the direct use of military power to remove the Iranian nuclear capability. Now, how close are we to that? Difficult to say. But I wouldn't take it off the table by any means. Other news, the U.S. Navy commissions the Virginia-class nuclear attack boat, the USS Iowa. In the ongoing war between the Russians, NATO, the Ukrainians are reporting that the Russians have upgraded their ballistic missile capability, in which they are able to evade U.S. anti-ballistic missile weapon systems. So that's interesting to hear, and that's coming actually out of the Ukraine itself. The United Kingdom, nuclear missile cover-up fears as secret pact allows U.S. to bring deadly weapons to UK revealed. The Royal Navy discovers Russian spy devices targeting UK nuclear submarine routes. The Russian troops push into Ukraine Sumy, and what they're specifically talking about is this area, and in particular this area right here, Bazivka. This town was recently taken by Russian forces. The Russians have crossed the border from the Russian Federation proper and have entered the Ukrainian Sumy region in this area, and then we're continuing to see fighting taking place in the Kursk Oblast as well, and that obviously will continue as we have just discussed. North Korea ship carrying dozens of missiles, analysts say, and that we'll go in more into that story here very quickly. Singapore, North Korea's new class of warship can accommodate dozens of vertical launch cells to carry missiles its military has already developed. Analysis of a satellite image showed a step that would give its Navy more punch and create an export opportunity. Little is known about the unnamed class of ships being built in the Zhongjian and Napo shipyards. In December, South Korean military said they would displace about 4,000 tons, somewhat less than half the size of a U.S. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. Image captured of the ship in Nampo in the last week of March, however, shows cavities on its deck large enough to hold more than 50 missiles, depending on their type, said researcher Jeffrey Lewis. So interesting to see what the North Koreans are creating. Again, economy incredibly dire shape, and they can barely feed their people. Yet they're very much focused on military expansionism in terms of direct military capability, not necessarily expansionism of territory, but keeping its military in a threatening posture towards South Korea and the United States. China tests new air-launched hypersonic missile. China flexes military muscles with rare large-scale missile test in the Gobi Desert. And Taiwan tracks 7 People's Liberation Army aircraft and 7 Chinese Navy vessels. And more information about the Russian subsurface fleet spying on the United Kingdom. Another large-scale attack took place in Gaza, killing as many as 46 Palestinians. And that essentially does it for the roundup of military news stories that are taking place around the world. We're also watching the continued war that is taking place in the Sudan. We believe at this point the Sudanese army has driven out most of these rapid reaction forces from Khartoum. It's very much apparent that the Sudanese military has now the advantage, especially in the Khartoum area of operations as that war continues. And this, again, is a very much high-intensity war that is hardly talked about in the mainstream media, that has resulted in the death of possibly tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people, both military and civilian personnel, as this high-intensity war continues. And it's in an area of the world in which there are tremendous fault lines. You have Sudan, you have Eritrea, you have Ethiopia, and the ongoing civil strife that is taking place there. And the wars that are taking place in this region do nothing to help the people of this area. And those wars obviously are continuing with very, very limited coverage throughout the world or any other news source for that matter. But we'll try to bring you as much as we can as we get information in those ongoing wars that are taking place in the near-term areas of the Horn of Africa and into the Sudan. But that does it for today. We are continuing to monitor all events around the world. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great Sunday. Good day.